Ever get that feeling like reality's just off?
Yeah.
Like maybe it's all less real life and more like some kind of super immersive video game.
It's a question that's been around forever, right?
Yeah, but it's not just philosophers and sci-fi geeks anymore. The tech world is starting to seriously look at the simulation hypothesis. And that's what we're diving into today with Rizwan Virk's book, The Simulation Hypothesis.
It's fascinating. Verk's background is so unique for this topic. I mean, he's a computer scientist from MIT, but also a video game designer. So he really gets both sides of this.
Totally. He argues that with AI and VR, we're getting closer to making realities that are almost impossible to tell apart from our own. Like, one part I found super interesting was when he talked about playing this ultra-realistic VR table tennis game.
Hmm.
He said it felt so real that part of him actually thought he was playing ping pong for real, not just in the simulation.
It shows how adaptable our brains are. Even if the input's coming from a simulation, our brains can just roll with it.
It makes you wonder how much of what we experience is actually real.
And that's where his comparison of simulations and dreams comes in. They both have their own rules, characters, internal logic, all that feel real in the moment. Almost like dreaming is our brains already running some basic simulation software.
Well, okay, so that's tech blurring the lines of reality. But you also sent me some stuff about ancient mystical traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism. They talk about the world as an illusion too. How does that fit in?
That's what makes Burke's take so cool. He connects those traditions with the idea of Maya, that veil of illusion, to the simulation idea. They've been saying it for centuries, just not calling it a simulation.
So we've got ancient mystics and tech innovators all saying similar things.
It makes you think, is there something connecting these ancient ideas to our modern tech?
Right. And then he goes even further, bringing in karma as a potential game mechanic within this simulation. If karma is really this cosmic cause and effect system woven into existence, what does that mean for our actions?
Yeah.
Like, could we cheat the system if it's all just cloud?
That's where these Eastern traditions get really interesting with their focus on ethical actions. If we think of karma as the underlying code, our actions aren't just like one-time things. They have ripples that could affect future lives, future versions of the game even.
So it's less about cheating and more about understanding the rules on a whole other level.
Exactly. Maybe mastering those rules, mastering ourselves is the real point of this whole game.
Okay, so we're talking about tech, spirituality, the very nature of reality. But can we even prove or disprove this simulation thing? Or is it all just a fun thought experiment?
Verk actually looks at potential clues that could suggest we're in a simulation. One thing he explores is how reality seems pixelated at the quantum level, like the universe has a base resolution, just like a computer screen.
Wait, are you saying there might be actual pixels in reality?
Hmm.
Like on my phone? That's
Not
wild.
exactly pixels as we see them, but kind of a similar idea. There's something in physics called the Planck length, which is thought to be the smallest possible unit of distance. It's like the universe has this fundamental resolution limit, a smallest possible grid, you know?
Okay, so like a limit to how finely things can be divided.
Yeah.
But how does that connect to the simulation?
So Verk's point is that this graininess could mean our reality is built on digital information deep down. Just like pixels on your phone build up the images you see, it's like the universe has this built-in grid, a digital canvas where everything's rendered on top of it.
Whoa, this is seriously messing with my brain, but in a good way. What other clues does Verk talk about that might point to us being in a simulation?
Well, there's quantum entanglement, that thing where two entangled particles, even miles apart, can instantly mess with each other. It's like they're connected in a way that just breaks our usual ideas about space and time, you know?
Yeah, quantum entanglement always felt like we're barely scratching the surface of something truly weird. Like, what if this impossible connection is actually a peek into the simulation's code? Could those entangled particles be like 2 points in the simulation that are linked at the code level, even if they look super far apart in the simulated world?
Exactly. If our reality works on a deeper set of rules, like we're seeing with quantum mechanics, it would make sense that those rules seem super strange to us, right? What if those rules are, as you said, the actual code of the simulation?
It's a lot to wrap your head around. And if we could crack that code, could we do things that seem impossible now, like faster than light travel or even teleporting?
Now you're talking about some exciting possibilities. But even without going there, just the sheer size and detail of the universe could support the simulation idea. I mean, building a universe this complex seems impossible, right?
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to even think about.
But what if the programmers, with their advanced tech, are using things like procedural generation to make it all?
Procedural generation, right? How does that work again?
Imagine a video game that can make whole landscapes, forests, even cities full of different characters, all based on algorithms and rules the developers programmed in. That's procedural generation making complexity from simple instructions.
Okay, so instead of designing every tiny detail, they create a system that generates it.
Exactly.
So you're saying the universe we see might not be as solid as we think? Like, it's always being generated or rendered around us based on the simulations programming?
That's the idea. Like, the universe is this massive, ever-changing canvas, constantly evolving based on the rules woven into it.
That raises questions about, well, everything. Cause and effect, free will. If the universe is constantly being generated around us, are we really making choices? Or are those choices already decided by the simulation?
Those are some of the biggest questions this all brings up. We don't have all the answers, but thinking about them can help us understand ourselves and the universe better. Like, imagine even if our choices are ultimately governed by the simulation, maybe the act of making those choices, of going through life's ups and downs, is what gives the simulation meaning.
So it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, even if the destination's already set.
Something like that, yeah.
But if it is a simulation, who are these programmers?
Yeah.
And what's their deal?
Verk looks at a lot of possibilities there. Maybe they're super advanced aliens, or even our own descendants simulating the past. Maybe there's something we can't even comprehend.
It's wild to think about. You know, one thing that's been bugging me is this idea of glitches in the simulation. Like in a video game, when something totally unexpected happens that breaks the realism. If our world is a simulation, should we see those glitches sometimes?
That's a calming thought. Verk talks about things like deja vu, precognitive dreams, even UFO sightings. All those unexplained things that make you go, huh.
So you're saying those weird events could be cracks in the simulation, like the code showing through.
That's one way to look at it. Maybe they're errors in the code or even messages from the programmers themselves.
If they are watching us, maybe even messing with the simulation, that's both cool and creepy. It makes you think about what their motives are, their ethics.
Definitely. And Verk gets into those ethical questions too. He talks about the possibility that the programmers might not be so nice. Maybe they're using the simulation for themselves, even if it's not good for us.
It's kind of like those sci-fi stories where AI takes over, right? And speaking of AI, Verk's computer science background really shines when he talks about consciousness existing in other ways. Not just in humans or animals, but maybe in AI too. So we're not just asking if we're in a simulation, but if consciousness itself could be like a program running on some crazy advanced computer.
It's a big idea for sure.
That's a huge concept to wrap your head around.
But Verk's point is that if we can accept that our consciousness comes from our brains, neurons firing, all that stuff, then it makes sense that a really advanced intelligence could copy those processes and maybe even create consciousness in a different way.
So instead of being in my brain, my consciousness could be running on a supercomputer somewhere out there.
It's a pretty wild thought, right?
That's something out of a movie.
Yeah.
But even if all that's true, does it change anything about our experiences, our relationships, everything we do here and now?
That's what Verk gets at. Even if it's all a simulation, it doesn't make our experiences less meaningful. Our emotions, connections, the good and the bad, those are all real experiences, regardless of where they're happening.
Right. It's like in The Matrix, there is no spoon.
Exactly. It's not about the physical stuff, but about what we experience within it.
It's kind of reassuring in a way.
And here's the thing. Even if we are in a simulation, we still get to decide how we react to it.
We have a choice.
We can freak out, or we can embrace the mystery, learn, connect with people, and just make the most of it.
It's like we're playing this giant video game with no instructions.
Right.
We can get frustrated, or we can dive in, experiment, and see what we can discover.
And who knows, maybe by doing that, by pushing our understanding, we might even find clues about the true nature of reality, simulation or not.
This whole conversation has been mind-blowing. So as we wrap up, is there one last thought-provoking idea you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, whether you're convinced we're in a simulation, on the fence, or totally skeptical, the real question is, how does knowing about this possibility, even if it's just an idea, change how you live your life today?
Now that's something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the simulation hypothesis.
Yeah.
It's been quite a journey.
Absolutely.
And to everyone listening, until next time, keep exploring those big questions.